today, specifically Scrum and Kanban. My name is Conrad Moore. I'm a PMP instructor here at Learn It, and I'm here to tell you a little bit about it. So agile is pretty popular here in the Bay Area. Obviously, there's a lot of software companies, and I get a lot of questions in my classes a lot about, within agile, what's the best way for me, what's the best methodology for me to use? And there's a ton of different agile things that you can do. So we're going to look at Scrum and Kanban because they are the most popular, but there's a million other ways that you could do it. So don't take this as a prescription. This is just an exploration of something that you could use. And so let's first talk about Scrum. Scrum, the term Scrum comes from rugby, actually, and it's a reference to when the team kind of groups together around the ball and moves it downfield, and that's similar to what we're doing in a Scrum project setting. And so let's look at the basic roles. We've got our product owner. You can see him here. He's smiling and happy. From there, we've got our Scrum Master and our team. So there's really only three main roles in a Scrum project, and they all work together and have different responsibilities within that. So first, let's look at our product owner. So the product owner is the main stakeholder. This is probably your customer, or if you work in an idle organization, this might be your business relationship manager. But basically, the job of the product owner is to make sure that everything involved in the project is what the customer wants. So it's probably going to be your customer. It could be somebody else representing your customer, but this is the main stakeholder in your project. And so the main role of the product owner is to give input on the requirements of the project's deliverables. So whatever feature sets that you want that the customer wants is going to be communicated by the product owner. And so this is done through what's called a product backlog. This is a prioritized list, like a wish list of things that the customer wants out of the final product. Let's talk a little bit about the Scrum Master, pictured here. The Scrum Master is the facilitator. So the Scrum Master is kind of like the coach of the team. He or she may or may not be a technical expert. The Scrum Master's expertise is really motivating the team, keeping things moving smoothly. Scrum Master will run all the team meetings and make sure that the product owner is able to communicate and prioritize the backlog and keep that updated for the team. So the Scrum Master is kind of a go-between from the product owner to the team, and kind of getting the team and the product owner on the same page and keeping everything running smoothly. And so if we think of the product owner as the person owning the final outcome of the product, we could say that the Scrum Master is the process owner, owning the Scrum process. And now let's look at our team. 3 smiley people on our team. An ideal team size, by the way, is 5 to 8, but that's not a prescription. You can kind of do whatever you want with that. The team's job is to basically develop the product of the project. And so the team will take items from the backlog, which is, again, prioritized by the product owner, and perform all the project work in short intervals that are called sprints. These generally last anywhere from a week, but no longer than probably a month, or it wouldn't really be called much of a sprint anymore, more of a distance run. And so the team performs its work in sprints and communicates status updates to everybody in the project on a daily basis. And so what is the process overall with our 3 people, or our 3 roles? What are they all doing? So we have here the basic Scrum process starts with sprint planning, moves into the actual sprint. There's a review of the sprint afterwards, and then a retrospective. And so let's look at what these are in greater detail. During sprint planning, the team meets with the product owner to figure out, how can we achieve the most features that you want to get out of this sprint. We may or may not be able to achieve everything, but what are the most important things? And then how long is it going to take us to do all these things? How realistic is it for us to finish, in the 2 weeks or the 3 or 4 weeks that we've set aside? So you're basically planning the project. And so as compared to a traditional project, sprint planning is much more squishy. There's not the detailed planning that you would expect in a traditional project plan. There's just a rough estimation for how long we think it's going to take us to do, and how much we can accomplish in such and such time. Once the sprint is planned, we move into the sprint where the team basically takes things off of the backlog and works on them and produces them. And so hopefully coming out of the sprint, we should have something that we can bring to market. And this is sometimes called minimum viable product, shippable product, something like that. And so once we've produced this, our team presents it, if it's software, demos it with the product owner and makes sure that everything is as the product owner wants. And so we review the product in the sprint review. After that, probably just the Scrum Master and the team will review the actual process of the sprint, what went well, what didn't go well. Sometimes you might see a product owner in there, but most likely if they're in there, they're just there to observe. Maybe having that type of input from a product owner at this point isn't going to be helpful since the product owner doesn't do any of the work. And so that's Scrum in a nutshell. And what are the bottom lines? Well, there's some advantages. And the great thing about Scrum is that it's quick. If you need to bring a product to market quickly, Scrum is a great methodology for that. There's, these short sprints allow you to produce something that you can immediately sell afterwards, assuming everything came out okay. It's flexible because the product backlog is constantly being reprioritized by the customer or product owner. We're able to adjust the outcome versus, a traditional project where we've set up everything in stone in the beginning and we're just working towards one final product that we designed early on. This actually allows the customer a lot of input, which means that, hooray, our product owner is going to be very happy. There are some disadvantages, of course. Planning can be challenging because, unlike a traditional project, we don't always know exactly where we're going. A lot of times it's one of those I'll know it if I see it type of things. So planning can be difficult if you're not entirely sure where you're trying to go. Also, sprints can be high pressure for the team because there's no real understanding of how long things are necessarily going to take. They're just rated. We're not giving accurate estimates. And so there are times when teams can take on more than they think, more than they actually can produce. And so this can be stressful. And also working in a Scrum environment takes time. The first time you try out your first Scrum, it may or may not go well, and depending on how seasoned your team is. And also having the same team together over time, improving team cohesion is better for the team. So it requires a bit of organizational maturity to do a really good Scrum. So that's Scrum. And now let's check out Kanban. What is Kanban? So Kanban actually originated in Japan at Toyota. It was a manufacturing process, and it was a scheduling tool basically to improve the workflow and get things done just in time. And it has since been adapted across all kinds of different industries. And typically today, at least here in the Bay Area, we hear about it in software development, but you see it really in all different kinds of industries. So don't feel like just because you don't make software, you can't use Kanban. And so here's how it works. It looks something like this. You have your backlog. This is a Kanban table. And so the backlog, similar to Scrum, has all the list of all the different things that we want to get done, shown here in these different colored cards. The cards will typically have the name of the task and the work involved and how many such and such we're supposed to produce, if that's a factor. And so everybody in the team can see the Kanban board, and we basically take down tasks off the board and get to work in producing them. We put them on the to-do list, then we start working on them. They move to in progress. Typically, they move into a review section to make sure that this is what the customer wanted, and then they are done. But this, again, is not really prescriptive either. This doesn't mean that your Kanban board needs to look exactly like this. You can get rid of the review if you don't want to do that. You could just do doing, done. It's really flexible. It's kind of whatever your team needs, and this is great for really just visualizing the work that we want to do. The last thing we should probably talk about with Kanban is WIP limits. This is work in progress limits, and the idea is that you don't overload any particular column to do or doing because you don't want your team to get overloaded. You want a nice, steady workflow, and so the WIP limits help you do that without overloading everybody and getting everyone stressed out. So the bottom line, Advantages: this is a great way to visualize your work, to see what's coming down the pipeline and all of that. It helps work flow smoothly, and then WIPs ensure that we're not getting overloaded. But for larger projects with say hundreds of tasks and a really large team, it doesn't scale very well. It's great on a simplistic, small, maybe medium-sized project, but not necessarily for every single project that you might do. Which kind of brings us to the final question: which one is right for me? And the answer is, there is no answer. It kind of depends on what you feel most comfortable with. I would think that the ideal situation would be for your team to understand both. I've actually seen a lot of people doing what's called Scrumban, where you put them together. You basically run your Scrum as you normally would, but then the workflow is managed by a Kanban process. And so that might be an outcome or a methodology that you like as well. If you'd like more information, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. We've got plenty of stuff here for project management, agile, and all that stuff. And don't forget to check out our website at learnit.com. I'm Conrad Moore. Thank you for joining me this morning. It's been a pleasure, and I hope I see you guys again soon. Thanks.